Hi, welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. The SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA artists during this time. Information on how you can support this effort can be found in the description of this video. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's guests from Wonder Woman 1984, producer, writer, director Patty Jenkins, and producer star Gal Gadot. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Good to see you.
You know, I think I've asked you this before, Gal, but I have a terrible memory. I always like to start by asking, since this is an audience of SAG actors, how did you get your SAG card?
When I think I got it when I did my first movie ever, which was The Fast and Furious. So on Fast 4, I became a SAG member.
That was your first movie ever?
Yeah, it was my second project.
Wow, right out of the gate. That's pretty impressive. So 3 years ago, the two of you broke box office records with the first Wonder Woman, and now you're back with Wonder Woman 1984, continuing this legend, and people are loving the film. I'm sort of curious, when you've pulled off something as amazing as the first film, is there concern that, you know, coming back and doing it again, you're not going to quite measure up the second time around?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think when we made the first film, the fear would be that it wasn't, you know, that I definitely believed there could be an amazingly successful Wonder Woman movie, but a lot of people didn't. And so, of course, we were driven and obsessed with like making a great film. And then, of course, you only want to make a greater film. You don't want to make a less great film. So for sure, from the start, it was how do we make this film completely different and a completely new experience, which is more ambitious than the last one.
And having seen it, can I just say you pulled it off?
Thank you. I'm so
But at what point did you sort of begin discussing the next chapter in Diana Prince's adventure? And can you talk about choosing to set it in 1984?
Very early in the game. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I think it was like midway through the first movie we started talking about it.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, it was a list of what I was, because I was seeing like, oh, wow, we only have this much time left. And this is the stuff we got to do. And this is what we didn't get to do with this film. And so I was surprised, as big and as exhausting as that movie is, it was like, oh, I'm not getting enough. Like, we're just getting Wonder Woman and I'm not getting enough of Gal and like what we could do. So I was craving to make a Wonder Woman movie. This was the birth of Wonder Woman. And so that was number one. Number two, I'd grown up watching the Linda Carter show. And so she was so synonymous with the late 70s or early 80s to me. And I loved the idea of taking her from you know, the darkness of war and dropping her at the absolute opposite, the height of opulence and excess and the kind of villains that would come from that.
Gal, when you heard 1984, did you worry about the fashion, or were you looking forward to it? Because that was not a good
I was very much looking forward to it, because like Patty said, you know, the first movie was set in 1917, and it's the First World War, and it was very gloomy and gray and all of that. So it felt like a breath of fresh air to be able to do it in such a colorful, poppy, alive of a decade, that it almost served like another character. The sets, we had so many real sets, and and like the way they dressed everything, it was so real. Even the mall scene that we shot in Virginia, we found this abandoned mall and they completely redressed the mall. And when we during breaks or in between takes, when you stroll around the mall in the stores that they dressed, it was dressed to the T with things from the 80s. Like even the arcade, all the games, you can play with Pac-Man, and you can like, it was amazing.
It made me so nostalgic. I don't know, you were probably like 3 years old in the 80s, but I remember those stores.
I was born a year later, 85.
Really? So how did you sort of prepare for this part? Or, you know, did you do a crash course on the 80s?
The thing with us, first of all, the 80s is such a familiar decade that you don't really need to educate yourself about it. But also, we didn't try to give a nod to the 80s, but Patty really wanted the movie to feel like a movie from the 80s, something that So for us, the present time was like the 80s, and that was like, that was super easy for me as an actress to, you know, to play with. It was all there laid out for me.
At the start of this movie, we see a very different Diana. She's made a home in America, but she's still sort of out of place. She's grappling with loneliness. How did you sort of prepare, in addition to all the physical work that I'm sure you had to do, to play this iteration of Wonder Woman?
You know, like Patty said, that was something I was super looking forward to do, because I felt like we really, you know, we completely played all the way through the first one, the fish out of water, the naivete of Wonder Woman, the wide-eyed girl that didn't really understand much about the mankind's world. So in this one, we wanted to bring a Wonder Woman who's more mature and different and ready, that understands the complexities of mankind. And not only that, she shares the same perspective with them and suffers from the same issues that mankind suffer from.
And we have to talk about this amazing cast. You have Chris Pine returning, which is wonderful, but also these great new additions like Pedro Pascal and Kristen Wiig. How did they come to be cast? Were they people you sort of had in mind early on?
Yeah, I think I was writing the script and thinking about who these characters were and how to make it interesting. I definitely wanted Barbara Minerva to not only be our great Cheetah, but also Etta Candy had been such a great character in the first movie, and I loved having like someone fun to be around to add to the cast. But the truth is, Kristen Wiig, every comedic thing she's associated with, if you look at it, they're so deeply character-based. She's a tremendous actor, and I think that it's very deep. Even her comedy is very deep. So I had so much confidence in her skill set, and I knew that she would be so incredible to see on this other end. And then Pedro Pascal and I had worked together. I love Pedro. I also got to know Pedro, and I saw so many things about Pedro I hadn't seen on the screen yet. And I felt like we really had a good chance to play around with a lot of that in this movie, where, you know, he's super funny, super warm, very light. And so getting him to, and loves drama. Like there was a theatricality about this part. I wanted someone who could really enjoy and let loose on it. And so he did. And I'm blown away by the performance that he ended up with.
And you cast him before anyone had seen him in The Mandalorian, I believe.
Yeah. He actually didn't even start The Mandalorian. He started The Mandalorian after we wrapped our movie. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. This is coming out after the movie has come out, but also I don't think I'm giving anything away. He's such a cool, composed character in The Mandalorian. He's kind of like a sniveling coward in this to some degree.
Yeah. Couldn't be more opposite. Yeah, and the truth is, Pedro has played a bunch of different interesting things, but he's played cool more often. He's never quite played anything like this before, so it was definitely very vulnerable for him. But he has such strong skills that we just had to let go of like, wow, this is not what I've ever done before. I've always played a kind of cool guy, and letting loose on this kind of performance.
How much was he inspired by another sort of con man businessman who, you know, has relationships to the White House?
He actually has been, it started sort of so purely based on Max Lord, and there were a ton of influences that went into it. But the interesting thing about our version of Max Lord is that he's less that than he is someone aspiring to be that. Like, that's why I loved that he's actually an immigrant who's living up to being the model of what these powerful businessmen of the 80s were modeling. That was the dream at any cost, to be one of those guys. And that's what's so interesting about his character to me.
Both Pedro and Kristen are playing what, you know, you would put in sort of the villain category, but they're actually both immensely sympathetic and relatable. Right. Was that something that was important to both of you?
Yeah, that was our secret sport, that there are no real villains in the movie. Let's have a movie. It actually breaks a bunch of superhero rules, which I love. And so no one dies in the movie. There are no villains. The battle is, the end of the movie resolves in not the way that is typical. And I love, you know, I have seen that before, and I loved the idea of really digging so deeply into these characters that were along their journey as much as we are our main heroes. And so that was, and we watched them turn into a villain. That was a great, delightful sport for us.
And Gal, your scenes with all of them, you have such great chemistry with Kristen in particular. She's a wonderful scene partner. Your scenes, I mean, it's funny. People talk about chemistry, about romantic chemistry, but I just think there's so many different kinds of chemistry. And with you and her, was that pretty instantaneous?
Yes, it was. We just had an immediate connection, an immediate click. I think that Kristen is such a generous partner. And she's so open, and you know, the filming this movie was super demanding as far as the physicality of everything, and the fact that I had her there as a partner, and we both shared the burden of all this physical work, and in between we just goof around and enjoy and have fun and make this process a special one. Is something, you know, it means a lot to me. I'm the type of person that the process is at least as important as the end result, and has a lot to do with the end result. And I think that we got very, very lucky as far as all the people that we had in our ensemble, and Patty. I think that, you know, these type of shoots, we shot the movie for 8 months, and sometimes, you know, 6 days a week. And if you're not there for each other, and if you make it about yourself, the process becomes very, very hard. But the thing with us, we really worked as one unit, you know, with Patty and all of us. We were always there, giving our 1000%. And whenever somebody going through a moment, there's everyone there to support and you know, help pushing forward. So I think that, you know, Kristen is just amazing. She has such a good heart, and she's so lovely to be with, and she became such a close friend of mine. So it's great. I'm very grateful.
This is maybe kind of a strange question, but Patty, when you were casting, did you have any sort of chemistry reads or auditions, or do you just cast great actors and you know it'll work? I've tried a little of both at different times. Some of my luckiest ones, I haven't had the opportunity to have a chemistry read. Gal and I did not want nor need a chemistry read with Kristen, because neither of us cared if we had chemistry.
We just wanted to work with her.
If she liked us or not. We were like, we love you. And we had been at events where both Gal and I were like looking around corners saying, there's Kristen. Hey, Kristen, do you want to come out with us? We love her.
Literally, you just see her personality transcends through her characters and also her intelligence.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, that's why she just have this ability to transform, to do such a major transformation, because she really started as this quirky, insecure, you know, shy person, and turned into the darkest, you know, evil menace type of woman. And she's so talented. She's so versatile.
Yeah. But the friendship was even beyond what we ever hoped for. We knew we liked her, and we knew she was going to be great. And that is the priority. You have to prioritize that above all else. But the way that they clicked and became such great friends, and honestly, the way the entire cast clicked and became such great friends, was just icing on the cake. You know, I think we're all a very similar people in certain ways. And so it felt like a group of friends. I would always joke that if we were all in high school together and we went on a field trip, I wasn't sure who I was going to sit next to. I was like, any one of them is like, I'm going to sit next to Gal, of course, but then I'm going to sit next to Chris, and then I'm going to sit next to Kristen, you know, and then I'm going to sit next to Pedro. Like, they're all who I would want to go on the field trip with. That was the funniest thing.
I'd stick with Gal just in case anything goes wrong.
Gal's an obvious win, no matter what. Yeah.
It's interesting because, first of all, you're shooting for 8 months, which just in and of itself is an endurance test.
Yeah.
But you're having to do very emotional scenes, also obviously physical scenes. Also, sometimes you're acting opposite something that hasn't been created yet, and you have to react. For you as an actor, what is the biggest challenge? Are you fine with the emotion, but you maybe sometimes struggle a little with the special effects, or maybe it varies from day to day?
No, I enjoyed the emotion work. Like I enjoyed the performance, the emotional performance. And even when it's challenging, I really enjoy it because, again, it's like it's such a special environment for an actor to be in, because Patty is, first of all, we just happen to become, she's my best friend, and I just feel that comfortable with her. But also, like, I could get as many takes as I need, sometimes more than I felt like I need. I could try anything that I want to try, knowing that Patty completely has my back. So it's super liberating. So the emotional part of it was great for me. I really, really enjoyed it. The challenging part is the physicality of everything, because, we would joke that I would wear a harness underneath the costume and then be wired to like endless wire rigs. And then I have to fly up in the air and be dropped into the water and act and say my line. And that's like, and that's by itself, like the harness is, I don't know how guys wear it. I'll just say that, but it's it can be very distracting, Yeah. So I remember it's just like in the first one, the hardest thing that I was dealing with was the cold, because we shot outside England during the winter, and I was just freezing. I remember one night when we shot the scene where we say goodbye, Steve and I was going through hypothermia. Like they wrapped me with the silver thing. Like it was, in this one, I feel like the struggle was the physicality again, but in a whole different level, because we pushed the stunt work to a whole new, the bar was super, super high. So yeah, for sure, the physicality aspect of it.
And I have something.
But what I was about to say about the cold, I remember as an actor telling myself, okay, even if it's cold right now, or even if I'm super uncomfortable right now and my neck is tight and my shoulders hurt, blah, 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 there's not going to be like tiny words going to say it was a cold day, or she threw her neck out. I was like, okay, I just have to like forget about everything and forget about the way that I feel and just be the character. That's something that I kept on thinking about.
And as someone who's directed lots of different actors in different scenarios, I have to say it's one of the things I think people in a community of actors like this don't acknowledge sometimes how incredible it is when great performances happen on these kinds of movies. Because as a director, when I'm watching Gal in a strap where she can't breathe and she's sideways and her back is falling out and she's in a green screen and there's a fan blowing in her face, and then she's giving this incredibly deep and profound performance, it blows me away. It's some of the most impressive acting I've ever seen Gal did in this movie, where I was like, whoa, that's incredible that you were able to do something so subtle and incredible in the circumstances. So anyway, I hope it's something that people appreciate, because I sure do.
Well, because I'm assuming everyone has seen the movie at this point. One of my favorite moments is Diana lassos and rides a rocket. And I wonder when you see something like that in the script, do you just know Patty's going to be able to pull it off so you don't even worry about it? Or is there a part of you that's like, oh boy, that's going to be a tough day on set? And Patty, when you write something like that,
it's both. I know Patty's going to pull this off. Sometimes I would challenge her and say, all right, Jenks, let's see you do that. But I know she can. She's always like super, I always tell her, you're like a Japanese sword. You just know, where you want to slice and you just go for it on the one, if it makes sense. But also we work off of previews that we get from our stunt team and our VFX teams for stuff like that with the missile. which is also a funny, which is also sometimes can be funny because you see like my character being super animated, making ugly faces while she does the thing. So we used to mimic her sometimes. But you see the vision, right? You just see the vision and then you try to better it, because then you realize, okay, now this is the best they could get it to. Now it's up to Patty and I to really make it of our own.
Yeah, I've already done this animated short film essentially. And so then we have people acting it out on the stunt team and stuff. And so it's and or previs, which is animated. So you're not totally getting the picture, but at least Gal already sees the plan, so you sort of, it only gets better from there, even though the stunt people are amazing.
Yeah, they are.
They're not even in costume and everything else. So, yeah.
So I don't mean to be greedy, because I know you've worked a long time on this movie and it's coming out now, but I think everyone wants to know what's up next. Are you thinking about a third? Will we jump into the 90s?
It's like when you're being asked about having another child.
Yeah.
And we're like, when the time is right. You never know.
I think we both
love all of our children.
Yeah. We both love the character. I love the character. I see endless opportunity of stories to be told with her, and the idea of making another movie with Gal about her is a delight. We're obviously both, busy doing other things, and so we don't know when and what will happen, with the studio. And there's many questions up in the air, but yeah, we still love Wonder Woman. We'd love to do a third.
There's no way to do. I know you're working on a Star Wars film. There's no way for a crossover, is there? I'm just trying to think, is that possible?
That would be so
you go into the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
And by the way, people are getting to see this film right now because it's streaming on HBO Max as of Christmas Day and playing in theaters. It's such a great gift to share with the world, especially when, people can't really go outside, to get to, stay home and watch this movie if they need to. When that decision was made, did that sort of excite you? How did you feel about that?
I think it scared both of us because it was so crazy. It was we all had such a different picture in mind. But I have to say, it did excite me. I had a little gasp of breath just because, my number one priority as a filmmaker is really to connect with an audience and communion with an audience and giving audience something that they're wanting in return. So what more incredible of a time after the year we've been through for exactly what we were aiming to do to give it to them in the holiday season. And so I find it bizarre how excited I am about this whole thing. It's such a different way than we could have ever imagined it, but yet it just feels great.
Yeah.
It is such a great gift, really, to the world. I want to thank you, as silly as this may sound, thank you for not messing it up, because everyone loved the first one so much, and you've given us another great movie. And thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for watching at home.